Hey, what's up everybody? Agamatsu today. Today we're going to be taking a look at what is the most skill-based class in Gaia. So a lot of people have differing opinions about this. A lot of people know that, oh, this class is brain dead. Oh, this class is so easy to play. You know what I mean? But a lot of people, when they think of skill in Rogue Lineage, are like, what? What are you talking about, bro? A lot of people say there's not any skill in Rogue Lineage, but I have to disagree. There are some classes where you got to learn the combos or you're going to get messed up. You know what I'm saying? So let's get started off. Starting off with the mage classes. Now, the thing about a lot of the mage classes is that it doesn't really require that much thought or like experience to learn how to use it. Especially with Philosopher's Stone, it's just kind of pretty easy to cast any spell. You don't really have to worry about casting shit like that, you know what I mean? Now, maybe if there was no Philo Stone and you had to hit combos by actually getting like a correct percentage every time, I could give a little bit more respect to mages in Gaia, but with Philo Stone, it's probably the least skill-based class or classes in all of Gaia. Moving on to Dagger classes, a lot of people have differing opinions about Dagger classes. A lot of people be like, oh, well, I mean, faceless combos, you gotta hit them, you know what I mean? But realistically, you can macro combos with faceless and shinobi, so that shows that you can get so good to the point where it's like, bam, like instant damage. However, a lot of people don't really need to get to that level, and I think trying to hit a faceless combo isn't really that hard. You're just kind of, M1, 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 lethality, M1, 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 then you can hit like Shadow Fan, Ethereal Strike, etc. You know what I mean? Same thing with Shinobi, except replace the move. So I don't think a lot of people really would say like, oh, it's a super skilled class. And then when it comes to Whisper and Cadence, I mean, if you're using like the Rapier, and not actually just spamming spells, maybe you could argue that there's some skill in that, but a lot of spies just be using Snarvender and don't actually need to really use their class that much. And even if it's just with a class, I don't think it's really that hard to play. Next, we're going to be taking a look at Dragon Sage and Oni. Now, with Dragon Sage, with the nerf, you got to be a little bit more creative with your M1s by using Monastic Stance, and I kind of like that. It forces you to think. You can't just actually, go in and use your M2 like you did before. And I mean, you still can if you can hit it, but they can perfect block it. So you got an M2 and then you snap Galley, for example. So it requires you to be a little bit more creative. However, I still don't think it's that hard to pull off combos. After you like a Snap Ignis, you can Lightning Drop, then do another M2 Snap Galley, etc. So there's just a lot of things you can do, but I don't think it's super skill based. Now with Oni, I think Oni deserves a lot of credit for being one of the lot higher skill based classes. You can definitely tell the difference between a bad Oni and a good Oni, and you can say this about any class, but a lot of the times if you're facing like a bad Oni, like it's really not that big of a deal to face them. But if you face those good Onis who can like literally one combo with a move stack, and probably a lot of people nowadays are just move stacking, then they'll fuck you up. You know what I mean? Like the good Onis will really mess you up, bruh. But again, you could maybe like make an argument as to why it's not super skill based, but I think it's probably one of the most skill based classes in Gaia, and I'll probably definitely put on the list for the most skill based. Now moving on to the spear classes, we have Dragon Slayer and Deep Knight. In my opinion, Dragon Slayer isn't really that hard to play. I do think it does take a little bit of skill, for example, like to get used to like circling around your enemy while using like Spirit Crusher, for example, when you're like knocking them and trying to do a ragdoll combo. But after you kind of get down that little learning curve, it's kind of just flawlessly easy at that point. You're just kind of timing it down, trying to hit your combos. With Deep Knight, a lot of people argue Deep Knight is just 1 through 7. You're just pressing your keys as soon as you land a chain pull while using your M1s at the same time, and then just kind of waiting to land a chain pull. I will say though, I do think that when it comes down to it, Deep Knight is one of the harder classes to use in Gaia because lack of mobility, you know what I mean? Pretty damn slow. You really got to be careful out there. But however, when it comes down to it, I don't think it's actually that hard to play. Now we move on to the sword classes. When it comes down to things like Wraith Knight, Abyss Walker, and Solons, I think those are actually pretty easy to play. A lot of Solons players will probably argue that there is a decent sized skill gap, and I will agree to that. However, I don't think it's really that difficult to Thunder Charge, White Flame, and then switch to like Flame Charge, for example. You gotta get used to it. So I will say it's higher on the skill list, but I don't think it's like that high of a skill gap, to be honest. And when it comes to Wraith Knight and Abyss Walker, I mean, Abyss Walker is just M1s, you know what I mean? Wrathful Leap, M2 stacking with the Wrathful Leap. Wraith Knight, it's just, you're just a mage. Lapidus and Ronin, however, you could argue that Ronin is probably a lot higher on the skill tier list and probably one of the most skill-based classes, because trying to hit those combos, if you fuck up the combo, you know what I mean? Like, you lose it. Like, that's it. Like, they're gonna pop Mana Shield again. you fucked up the combo. However, for those like Ashe and Ronins that do pop off with those combos, it's actually kind of crazy, super rewarding, and I do think it requires a decent bit of skill to actually land, because I almost never see Ronins landed. They always land like the triple strike, but they always mess up, and like the third like slash would hit you and it would knock you away and it'll ruin the combo. I don't know, it's just really hard to perform in Gaia like flawlessly or perfectly. With Lapidus, you can kind of move stack all three of the I'm pretty sure the shards, and then use them all at the same time. I don't think it's that crazy hard to use. You're just kind of using your M1. So again, from this list, I'll say maybe Ronin could be on the tier for being the most skill-based class. So in conclusion, I think Oni and Ronin, in my personal opinion, are probably the most skilled-based classes. Maybe you could argue one or the other. Perhaps you could also argue for things like Whisper and Solons. If you're just looking at the base class alone, you know what I mean, not considering like Snarv and shit like that. But when it comes down to it, in reality, the classes are not really all hard to use at all. To be honest, every class on this list, give it like 20-30 minutes in a private server, you're already learning the basics. Sure, just watch a video to like learn the advanced tech like move stacking, but if I had to say which one was the most skill based in Rogue Lineage, maybe Ronin and Oni. That's just my thoughts. Go ahead and leave your thoughts down below on what you think the most skill based class is, and maybe leave an argument. I'll respond to it. I'll see you guys later. Peace.